everyone. I'm Noreen Purcell Dillman, the creator of the Healthy Peaceful podcast. About me, I describe myself as a former attorney, YouTuber, natural food chef, wellness guru. No, that's not a typo. It actually means precious one. If you haven't been following me, you may be wondering what this podcast of 4 years is all about. It's a place where I interview individuals on topics pertaining to the meaning of health and well-being, personal and collective consciousness, and maximizing full human potential. This episode is a part of a series between me and Chef Rich LaMarita. During this series, we delve into the 8 principles of food in the ancient system of health and well-being called Ayurveda. What I really like about this series and what I feel Chef Rich literally brings to the table, and I've studied many Ayurvedic cookbooks and other written materials about the Ayurvedic approach to food. I've discovered few, however, written by a professional chef who is also completely in tune with what appeals to the American palate. So here, instead of presenting yet another litany of lists and do's and don'ts of what to eat if you want to try Ayurveda, Rich asks us to join him on a journey of the senses. I've discovered, and I'm sure you will too, that no one wants to embrace an Ayurvedic approach to food and health unless there is some sensory delight, meaning pleasure of the senses. So let's delve in with Chef Rich, acknowledging that initially we may feel confused, but with some practice and Ayurvedic approach to our daily food will become second nature. Naturally, we will begin to see our health transform. And once this magic starts to happen, we will want to fully embrace Ayurvedic principles. The first principle is Prakriti. We often hear this word referred to in Ayurveda to describe our own individual nature, essentially what our doshic makeup was at birth, our own mind-body type, and the North Star for the balancing principles that Ayurveda furnishes. We don't often hear it referred to when we speak about food, but food also has a Prakriti, an inherent nature. Specifically, Rich will bring us on a journey through the 6 tastes and how, according to Ayurveda, these tastes have a unique effect on our Prakriti, our own mind-body type. The second principle of food that Rich will introduce is Karana, or preparation, and how different methods of food preparation impact our physiology and mental outlook. The third principle is Samyoga, or food combining. Without becoming too rigid, we want to become aware of how Ayurveda views different combinations of food, and what are the definite faux pas and what we can regularly incorporate for maximum health and well-being. The fourth principle is Rashi, or amount. Ayurveda has a formula for the quantity that is considered too little, too much, and just right. The state of our appetite, or what is called Agni, will also be considered, as well as times of day. Caution here, we may append that universal American belief that a large breakfast is required to fuel your day. The fifth principle is Dashen, or the source of food, and where we consume the food. We are all familiar with what is now universally adopted by those who truly care about their health. Eat what grows locally and organic, if at all possible. Yet we all continue to enjoy our avocados. Rich will share the Ayurvedic view here. The sixth principle is Kala, or time, and will include daily eating habits, meaning what times a day are most appropriate and the quantity of the food for each meal. Kala, or time, also relates to each season and how our diets will change with the seasons. We will also address times of life. What we eat when we are 62 and the quantities we eat at 62 are dramatically different than what we eat when we're age 12. The seventh principle is called Upayoga Samstha, or rules for food intake. Here, Rich expounds on the culture of eating and our habits, essentially how we behave before, during, and after a meal. The eighth principle, or Upayukta, considers the person who is eating, essentially his or her mental state. In Ayurveda, these states are called Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. And also the strength of our digestion. Is it balanced or imbalanced? And how do we remedy imbalanced digestion? Now, a bit about Chef Rich. Currently, Chef Rich LaMarita calls New York City home. He was a chef instructor at the Natural Gourmet Institute in Manhattan for over 25 years. This is where Rich and I met, as I was a student there. NGI was formed by Anne Marie Colvin, a well-known proponent of the connection between food and health, also a proponent of natural foods and the author of many books pertaining to these topics, including her seminal work titled Food and Healing. While at NGI, Rich's specialties included the following: vegetarian cuisine, vegan, Indian, and Italian. Rich has also worked with numerous well-known chefs in New York City, including Floyd Cardoz, Dan Kluger, and Ben Pollinger. He has also worked as a private chef for many notable families and as a private instructor in Manhattan and the Hamptons since 1995. Rich has been a practitioner and teacher of Ayurveda for 35 years. He has studied with Vedic and Ayurvedic master Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, the founder of Transcendental Meditation, TL. Rich has led seminars on Ayurvedic diet, cooking, yoga, and meditation throughout the US, Europe, and Asia. Rich joined the Institute of Culinary Education in 2019, ICE, teaching plant-based culinary arts career classes and leading recreational classes in Ayurvedic, Asian, and vegan cuisines. He is also a graduate of Maharishi International University's master's degree program in Maharishi Ayurveda and Integrative Medicine, a program where he is currently teaching as a TA. Wow. After reading this, I hope you're as excited as I am. And I realize how special it is to have a guest like Rich LaMarita. I hope you will find this series as enjoyable as I have. Now let's dive in.
We thought we kind of concluded, or last time we talked, we judged, we said that the results of a good diet, the results of a balanced diet, the results of a really true Ayurvedic diet is, one, you have good energy, strong energy throughout the day. Your physiological processes are working. Your processes of elimination, your appetite is good, your sleep is good. That life flows well, without too many obstacles and too many problems physically, that your body feels strong, These are some of the effects of a healthy diet, right? So that's good. And that's definitely a change. Not that it's a brand new idea, but it certainly has changed my perspective a bit on, changed my awareness on what I'm eating. Is what I'm eating having that effect, And you ask yourself that question, right? Ayurveda, and here's the kind of new stuff I want to go into just briefly. Not too long.
Before you do that, Rich, I just want to reflect back on what you're indicating about. Last time we were talking about what is an Ayurvedic diet?
Yeah, that was the question, right?
Yeah, so that, and for anybody who hasn't seen that interview, I think it's interview 3 of our series, so check that one out because that's really profound, I believe. Because really that's what it's all about is, am I feeling enthusiastic? Am I feeling blissful? And when I say blissful, it's not, that kind of erratic, like, that's wonderful, but probably not sustainable 24/7. It's more like, do I have that steady flow of just feeling good energy, And when you and I spoke, it was really, in Ayurveda, they use the term ojas and mentally the term soma, and that's really vitality. Am I having that ojas in my physiology? Am I feeling that? So I really appreciate you taking the time to, and you were describing also your own personal shift in thinking about food as a person who's been in the chef and the food world for decades. And how you were making some minor shifts. And really, it's all about, we can get all kinds of things about spices and lists and doshas, but we don't want to lose the forest through the trees. Would you say that kind of summarizes to some extent what you were sharing last week?
Yes, perfectly. It really does. Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Exactly.
All right.
Sometimes we do get wrapped up in the details, is
Yeah.
cumin okay? Is the chickpea too heavy? Can I mix broccoli with Parmesan cheese? And it can,
Right.
and that can get very complicated, particularly since diet is so individual. But yeah, the
Perfect.
overall effect is, in a nutshell, are you creating ojas from the food that you're eating? And understanding what ojas is, and understanding how to feel it. What does it feel like to have good ojas, which is life force,
Yeah.
vitality.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome. And I know you had a few other things you wanted to share before we get into kind of methods of food preparation for somebody who's moving toward Ayurveda. But what else did you have on your mind today?
Well, I think it's good to basically it's looking into yourself regarding diet, and asking yourself, am I really on this diet? And Ayurveda gives us a little guideline in terms of describing different styles of digestion. And I think it is important to kind of understand where a person stands, or where you stand regarding these styles of digestion. And Ayurveda describes 4 styles of digestion. One is Sama Agni. Agni, first of all, the concept of Agni is that Agni is the fire in us, the digestive fire that's burning. But not only the digestive fire, but the fire of transformation in the body. So anything that transforms, but particularly in terms of digestion, it's the fire within our digestive system. As opposed, and what that means in terms of Ayurveda is really this kind of the strength of the transformative powers in our digestive juices, and those are the acids, the acids and the acidity in our digestive juices. So this is Agni, as opposed to Pitta. Pitta is one of the doshas, and Pitta is also very connected to digestion. But Pitta is the enzymes in general, because Pitta is the fire, is Agni plus the moisture plus the water. Remember, Agni kind of fire, but
The
Pitta
Pitta
is
dosha is composed of 2 elements, fire and
fire
water.
and water. Fire and water.
Agni is the fire, and it's essentially the strength of our digestion, or it can relate to kind of the type of our digestion in general.
Yes, and that's what we're going to get into.
Cool.
So first, there's
And you
a
talked about
balance.
Sama Agni, which is balanced.
Sama Agni is the balanced digestion,
Mm.
good digestion. What we were describing in terms of the development of ojas, good taste, good appetite, feeling good while we're eating, feeling good after we're eating, feeling blissful. Okay. It also results in, Ayurveda says, balanced dhatus. So in other words, the body feels strong and healthy. That when the body is nice, when the body is creating strong dhatus, creating balanced physiological processes, that's a sign that you're experiencing some Agni.
And the
It's also
dhatus are the tissues,
the
or
dhatus,
loosely translated as tissues, like
right,
lymph, rasa, rakta, blood.
right, blood, fat,
Okay.
muscle,
Yeah.
bone, yeah,
Right.
that that we're that we're feeling good regarding that the
The
body is
things are
creating
actually
strong
working.
things.
Things are working the way they're supposed to.
Exactly. Um, Supposedly, it's a bit rare that that anybody has perfect Sama Agni. If you have perfect Sama Agni, then you have perfect health. Okay, which basically equates to enlightenment. We tend to fall into one of three categories, and that is either a Vata style, a Pitta style, or a Kapha style. And a Vata style is called Vishamagni. And a Vishamagni means that your digestion, your appetite, your ability to process food is kind of variable. It's changing. It's changing. Okay. So one day you digest pretty well, next day you don't digest pretty well. One day there's gas, next day there's not gas. Um, one day you feel a little bloating, next day you don't feel a little bloating, or you might feel slow digestion. So it's kind of there's variation on that. And it will come out in terms of how you feel, and in terms of the actual physiological processes, your dhatus. Let's say your elimination is not regular, or one day your elimination, is constipated, and the next day it's very soft stool, and you have, multiple bowel movements, things like this. So your body will tell you. So that's one, is this kind of changing digestion. The second is Pitta style. Pitta style is known as Tikshna Agni, and here your Agni kind of runs hot. Your Agni tends to run hot. So you could experience a state of heat, excess heat, burning. You could have GERD, a little bit of GERD, or a little some feeling of acidity in your stomach, a little bit of indigestion, let's say. It'll come out depending on if you're eating a lot of food or not eating a lot of food. But you tend to kind of run a little bit hot. And the third is Kapha style digestion. Kapha style digestion is known as Mandagni, and it's a kind of a slow or weak digestion. And here also the dhatus will start to be poor in quality, or increase in quality, like swelling or weight gain, a feeling of slowness in the digestion. So we tend to be one or the other, and it is good to kind of be aware of, kind of where you stand on that. For instance, like for me personally, I would say for a majority of my life, I've probably been leaning more towards Tikshna Agni, where I kind of run hot. Okay. How do I know that? Because I mean, it's changing now, and it's more balanced now, but it would come out as a feeling of always being hungry, always wanting something, always feeling like I could eat something. Okay.
And sort of that, I think they also say that with Tikshna, you don't want to delay a meal with a pitta.
Yeah,
and that, they can get that feeling of hangry.
right,
That
right,
so
right. I don't
is
think
that
I've
what
ever
you're
gotten.
is that what you're
Yeah,
describing, or yeah.
yeah. I've never gotten that. I don't think I get angry if I don't eat, but uh, I just feel like I need, I need to eat something. I need to eat something. Um,
Yeah.
so it's that kind of feeling. Also that you burn through the food. You kind of digest the food. You feel like you're digesting the food um, pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Interesting. I think I'm less of that now. Okay. Um, I'm going into my Vata. I'm in my Vata stage of life now.
Yeah, I want to
So
I want to talk about that because I actually have similar experience that in the pitta stage of life, well, probably until maybe age 50, I was definitely pitta, Tikshna Agni. But then
yeah.
it really shifted more to Vishama.
Hmm.
And I think talk about like people going through a transition, like we're talking about the Vata stage of life, which is typically over 60 in
Hmm.
Ayurveda. But you know, these are just benchmarks, and you know, could be before, after, and shifts are happening
Right.
all the time. So yeah, I mean, somebody who's always been like, you know, they could eat anything and they've got a fast metabolism, and then all of a sudden things slow down. What advice do you have for them?
Ah,
Because I
I
think
mean,
that's fairly common as people age, that they really need to, you know, as they're coming into the maturity, they need to think about, oh, I can't, this doesn't feel comfortable anymore. But these
right.
things are, these patterns get very habitual,
Yeah,
and
it
it's
could
hard,
take
it's really hard to let go.
yeah, it could take a decade or more,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know? It definitely could.
Yeah.
Because I'm starting to feel now a little bit more uh it, it's something I would think it's Vishama actually, but Vishama can have a tendency towards a certain dosha, okay? And
Absolutely.
I think it could be Vishama actually with a tendency towards Mand, okay? Towards a kind
Mm-hmm.
of towards kind of a slower digestion. I think the important thing is to, if you can, study and be aware of that, number one. Be aware that these changes are taking place. And use a guide. There are guides. Ayurveda has a beautiful guide that helps us with regard to if you're feeling mandagni, um, this is the type. This is how you should lean in terms of your diet. So this might be going against what we just said. Where what does it mean to be on an Ayurvedic diet? It means to be on an Ayurvedic diet means to be more self-referral in terms of how you feel. But at the same time, you do need the knowledge of what's going to help you. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. No, I think they have to go hand in hand. You want to be
right,
tuning in, but continuing to increase your knowledge at the same time.
right, right. So you
Okay.
have to know what spices would be good for you, what teas would be good for you. Is it better to eat, you know, heavier, for morning or lunch and something like that. So yeah, you need this kind of baseline of knowledge, uh, and then you judge it based on how you feel. That's the question. That's the answer. You do it, you practice it, and you see how you feel after that.
Right. It's
Okay.
it's really, a lot of really testing, and just, seeing how
Mm.
your body responds to the various changes that you're trying to make, no doubt.
Right, right.
Are
So
you
that's
ready to move to food
I am.
preparation, or did you want to add
No,
something else
no,
about?
no. That's no. We'll pick up on that. I just wanted to say that I think that knowledge of these four stages of digestion in Ayurveda are important, and that it's good to get a sense of where you stand with regard to that. Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that's what it. But yeah, but we can move
And
on
there and
to
there's a lot
the next
in
stage.
yeah, there's a lot in the Ayurvedic literature about um, you can do assessment worksheets in terms of the type of digestion you have.
Right.
And then you can continue to refine and work with your digestion. And this could be, and digestion varies as well, and pay attention to seasons. And I know we're going to talk about that. Let's talk about preparation, which you use the Sanskrit term karana. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. Karana. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And I know the first bullet point you've given me is talk a little bit in general about preparation of food.
Yeah. I mean, it it explains that the way, part of diet and part of a correct diet, and particularly an Ayurvedic diet, which looks at food as wholeness, and has intelligence that you're putting into your body, that the way you handle food from the start, the way that we handle food from when it's grown to when it's eaten, is very important. Number one, is we want to make sure that the food is of high quality, so the whole movement with chefs and with foodies and with farmers markets, of knowing the source of your food is part of this. We want to do the best we can to eat food that is not full of pesticides, is properly grown, ideally organic. Okay. That's very important because we don't want to change the quality of the food from the source, because no matter how strong your digestive system is, if you're taking in something that's full of poisons, for instance, then that's not a good thing.
Sure. Yeah, I think generally everybody's on board with try to eat locally, try to eat organic when you can.
Yeah.
Be aware of, dirty dozen, all that. But I want to talk more about, first of all, does anyone really prepare 3 meals a day? Answer that question. And is that realistic?
Yeah, very few people.
Does anyone actually cook three times a day? Let's go more. We might eat 3 meals. Obviously, we have to prepare something. Right. Do you know anyone who actually cooks 3 meals a day?
Probably not.
Okay.
Probably not.
We really have to get in tune with our modern life and what people can actually do, right?
Yeah. That's
personally myself. My kids are grown, so I'm not cooking for a family.
Mm-hmm.
I cook once a day. I consider that good. Mm-hmm. It's not perfect, but I cook once a day.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say that, like one main meal and the other 2 meals are just, maybe I only have 2 meals a day and they're just, I don't give a lot of thought to them.
Mm-hmm.
But so comment on that, like what's realistic for people to do and still practice an Ayurvedic approach?
Yeah, this is a great question. First of all, it just goes back to a very important point, though, is that it is our responsibility to eat the freshest food possible, to stay away from processed foods, even to stay away from leftovers that have been sitting for a long period of time. Okay. In your refrigerator. Ideally, you want to eat as fresh as possible. Do I eat leftovers? Yes, I do. Okay.
Not a lot, right?
Not a lot. Are they leftovers days and days and days, like 4 or 5 days? No. Okay.
All right.
Maybe one day, 24 hours.
Let me respond to that.
Yeah.
I want to respond to that, actually, leftovers and the prana in the food. Because I really think that is so important.
Yeah.
I think it's, it's funny because even before coming to Ayurveda, I never liked leftovers, but I didn't know exactly why.
Mm-hmm.
Because it just feels like I'm eating dead food and it's lost all its flavor. And Ayurveda has this concept of prana. And do I eat a leftover? Yes, but I try to do it very infrequently.
Mm-hmm.
And when I do, I'm never satisfied. That's the other thing with leftovers. Is personally myself, I never feel satisfied with a leftover. And then that could lead to overeating.
Mm-hmm.
Or snacking or eating things that maybe aren't as healthy.
Hmm. Yeah. 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 That's what I'm talking. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's, there is a certain responsibility that comes with saying, I want to eat like an Ayurvedic diet. I want to eat a truly Ayurvedic diet, because you're not going to be able to cook 3 meals a day. Okay. So prana in the food leaves. I don't think it. I I think I've heard a few doctors say that the product in the food can stay 6 to 8 hours. Okay, so so you can leave food in the fridge for over, and that's the other thing is with certain ways we store food, you can extend that. I mean, we have refrigeration now. It's a different thing. You can freeze things. And when you freeze certain foods and take them out, they they do retain their freshness. Okay. Um, so with refrigeration, with modern refrigeration, I think you can definitely extend the food a bit more. You can always prep, foods. You can always prep foods and have foods ready to be cooked that will save you time in the cooking, you know. Um,
Sure.
but yeah, I mean, I try to do my best in terms of eating fresh, you
Right.
know.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's a really good point. It's really um, tr really try to do your best. And
mhm.
certain foods left over, I think, are really more problematic for digestion, such as beans.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, veggies don't have a lot of life in them after a while, you know.
Right.
But when a food is in a liquid, it seems to stay more. Like a
Yeah,
soup,
yeah,
you know. Um,
sure.
uh, Dal, even one day,
Yeah,
it gets a little bit thick and dry, but you can always add water
right.
to it and heat it up,
Yeah,
you know.
right.
That's the other thing is, how are you preparing even the leftover food? I mean, if you're popping it in the microwave, not ideal, but if you're taking it out, you're heating it up, with some additional fat, with some additional liquid. One day it seems okay. It's good. Is it ideal? Probably from a purely Ayurvedic standpoint, no, but it's okay. It's good. It's okay. You know.
Yeah,
Um.
yeah. Okay, great. I want to actually, this relates to preparation. It relates to, we hear the Sanskrit term sadhana, and often, you hear about like food preparation as a sadhana. And it's,
Okay.
I mean, the yogis actually, are very in tune with this, but others may not. But to me, the sadhana is, your daily practice. Like we have a sadhana with Ayurveda that, we get up with the sun, we try to, do energetic activities in accord with the doshas. We follow a daily routine. We're not rigid, but we're sent more. We take the time to really try to align ourselves.
Hmm.
I do view food preparation as a sadhana.
Hmm.
Could you say anything about that? Like, why is it important to prepare your own food? We know all the, we know about, we kind of know the generic terms, but more like from a kind of a practice, Ayurvedic practice, there's a spiritual component I feel in preparing your own food.
Hmm.
And if you're really
Yeah.
dedicated to it, then when you don't do it, it's like not meditating to me.
Right.
And
Right.
you feel it. You feel like there's something missing.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think it's very important to be present with the food when you're preparing it. But I mean, from the start, as soon as you get it, do you put it away right away? Do you put it away properly? Do you store it properly? That just means respecting the food and being present with the food. Um, that to me, is part of an Ayurvedic diet rather than just leaving things around for hours before you decide to put it away, smashing it into a cabinet somewhere, or putting it, not putting it properly, not wrapping it properly in your fridge. All of that is part of it. But then when you take the food out, and you actually start preparing it to eat, um, you know, to be present with how you're going to prepare that food, from the washing of the food to the cutting of the food, um, uh, to how you're going to cook it. You know, the expression in Ayurveda, the consciousness of the cook goes into the food. Your energy does go into the food. I mean, as a culinary instructor, I know that that's true because you could give the same recipe and the same food,
Yeah,
to 10 different people, and they have
I know.
the same exact food, right? The same exact recipe, and it's like you're getting 10 different dishes, you know?
You wouldn't know it was the same recipe, right?
You would not know. I mean, even down to, how it's presented, but that's a whole nother part of it. Um, because you can present it in different ways and it still be the same. But I mean, literally, like it tastes different. It feels different, when you eat it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
no
so being
doubt. And
present.
you know how, well, you're in the culinary world, so you know how if a particular person is cooking, you can't wait to be there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if it's someone else on the lineup, it's okay. You might come back later.
Right. 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 And then
But
there's also
you bring a good point, the consciousness of the chef.
yeah, yeah, your energy is in that food, you know.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
your state of mind is in the food. If you're sattvic,
Mhm.
if you're feeling, happy within yourself, you're relaxed. It's going to be a different experience cooking and a different outcome in the food than if you're feeling really rushed, you know, and you want to push through it and you want to, do it really quickly, and the TV's on and this is on and you're not really concentrating on the food. Um, so you cut it different and then you cook it different. Um, I mean that from the culinary standpoint, that's ideal. The ideal opportunity to make mistakes. Adding too much fat, not enough fat, not keeping your eye on it, so you burn it or you over steam it, things like that. You know. So to put your attention on the food properly, elevates the food, elevates the dish, so that it's a much it's much more pleasing, it's much more delicious, and it's the way that it should be, you know. So you're
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
more you're getting more out of
Yeah, the
that.
attention is really important, no doubt. And there's different kinds of attention. It doesn't mean you have to be, looking over the pot 24 hours. You're not going to do that. But
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah, right.
having an awareness of, and if you don't really know something, just maybe being a little more careful.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and but not too timid either. I think people can kind of get in a rut with their cooking.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, they can be afraid of what they're doing. Am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? Oh, the recipe calls for this. And you have to understand that recipes themselves are just guidelines. You know,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
might say certain spice or a certain, seasoning, this much salt, for instance, but hey, we don't know what kind of salt they use, exactly the strength of the seasoning that they used or spice that they used. Was it fresh? Was it freshly ground? Was it, a ground spice that's been sitting in the cupboard for a year? So that if it says 1 teaspoon of cumin, and it's been in your cupboard for 1 year, you smell it, there's like very little, as opposed to fresh cumin seeds that are freshly toasted and you ground, incredible aroma,
Yeah, yeah, just that really really simple thing can be transformative, no doubt.
Yeah, yeah, can change
I
things
actually
completely.
wanted to this relates to food preparation, but I think this part is important. And I think
Hmm.
we'll wrap up with this section. And that is I don't know how much Ayurveda, but other, natural food systems, obviously Ayurveda is much more than food. Food's a big component, but it's natural healing,
Hmm.
everything. Um, but like when we talk about macrobiotics and some of the other systems, we're talking about the energetics and talking, there's a lot of emphasis placed on how you prepare the food, the different cooking methods, um, how they impact the body, the physiology. Could you mention that? Like we have stir frying, we have pressure
Hmm.
cooking, we have braising, we have baking, we have roasting. Um, and so talk a little bit about that from an Ayurvedic perspective, because we don't necessarily hear a lot about that from an Ayurvedic perspective.
Yeah,
At least
yeah.
I'm not aware, maybe you are. But I think it's important. Like when I do most of my grains, I do them in I mean, people will think this is complicated. I don't. I do them in a kind of a clay pot inside a pressure cooker.
Mm.
I don't know why I do that. I just like how they come out, especially like
A
grains
clay
like
pot
brown rice.
inside of a clay pot inside the pressure cooker?
Yeah,
Wow, interesting. How big is the clay pot? Small?
it's small. It's small.
Okay.
It used to be called an asawa pot, but they
Hmm.
don't sell a lot of small ones of those anymore. You can't even get them online. But so I just, I have a little clay pot that goes inside the pressure cooker, and you know, throw them in there and bring it to pressure, cook it, and I mean, to me, it just doesn't compare.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's
I think,
me.
yeah, yeah. I think all of that is important. How you choose to cook the food, what actually cooking method you choose, makes a big difference.
Yeah.
They're all good. They're all
Yeah.
good, and they all cook the food, and they all make food more bioavailable, bionutrient available. Um, but there's a different, like you said, energetic to the food, right? If you when I'm cooking something, I try to vary the cooking methods. So, in other words, like if a recipe might call for, let's say, doing a vegetable salad, let's say, or let's say, like a pasta salad, um, or a grain salad. Let's use a grain salad, like a farro salad, and you cook the grain. And then there's a lot of different vegetables in there. You might have some fennel and broccoli and cauliflower and some olives and maybe some nuts. And maybe the recipe says blanch all the vegetables. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
blanch the fennel, blanch the cauliflower, blanch the broccoli. Because it's easy that way. Okay. It's easy that way. One pot, blanch one, blanch the other, and you're done. Okay. But then you end up getting kind of similarity. You get the same texture out of everything. Um, so I tend to vary things. So, maybe I will, saute the fennel, I'll blanch the cauliflower and roast the broccoli. So suddenly you're creating in that dish, layers of flavors and textures. And
Yeah.
that variety and kind of that complexity is really enjoyable and really comes out and makes the dish uh, so much better. And it kind of creates a nice wholeness in the dish. So I
Mhm.
always think of doing that. Um,
Yeah, yeah, that's actually really yeah, I love that because like you said, now you took some simple foods and you're creating those layers. So that's
yeah, you're creating these kind of layers of flavor. So it's really, really nice.
and then
But
you're
each
bringing
each
out
of
like
the
you kind of the strong and the mild.
Yeah,
You're gonna the roasted vegetables are gonna have a little stronger of a flavor, but you're not gonna have everything having a strong flavor.
exactly, exactly. Because the blanching is important too. With the cauliflower, let's say you
Yeah.
blanch the cauliflower, um, it might absorb the dressing a little bit more. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. Good point. Good
The
point.
broccoli is grilled,
So
and
it's going to be a
or the
little more
broccoli.
acid. You're going to get a little more acid there because it's going to get the dressing.
Yeah, you're gonna toss it with everything. But let's say
Right.
the broccoli you roasted, the broccoli has, starting to have a little color on the outside. So it has like a very simple kind of a crustiness to it. It's going to resist it's going to resist that dressing getting absorbed into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas,
Now you got a coating. You created a coating, and therefore the dressing's not going to be
yeah,
um
it's still
okay
going to work, but
assimilated.
it's not going to get absorbed as much as the cauliflower, which is
Oh,
just
okay.
blanched.
Cool. Cool.
So little
I
things
like
like
that.
that, little
Mm,
things like that. So yeah,
mhm.
I mean, this is what makes chefs, and it's what makes cooking fun because you can do things like that, and and change dishes around and make dishes, with have some more variety and some more complexity, so that they're more enjoyable. When they're more enjoyable, um, you'll get more out of it. Doesn't mean to say that doing a dish with one technique is wrong or bad, because that can be great too in itself. You know, so
Yeah.
it's good.
Yeah.
It's good to explore. It's good to experiment on that. It's good to learn what works and what and what doesn't work. Uh, for instance, we did a cooking class recently, where we were doing a stir fry, um, and we did two versions of the stir fry. In one version, it was a noodle dish, a noodle stir fry, and one version had soba noodles because we wanted to see uh, the flavor of the soba noodles. Everybody, we really like soba noodles, and these were 100% buckwheat soba noodles. Uh, they're very healthy, so we wanted to get that sense, from this nice healthy food. The other version was with the rice noodles. Okay, um, they both dishes tasted good in the end, but the soba noodle one didn't work. It didn't work because,
It was too heavy, right?
well, not because it was too heavy, but because with the soba noodles, you cook them first. Okay,
Yeah.
you cook the soba noodles first, and then you hold them. Okay, and
Yeah.
we held them.
Right.
We rinsed
Right.
them and we held them in a little bit of cold
Sure.
water and
Sure.
all of that. Okay, but
Yeah.
then we made the mistake of stir frying it again because the recipe called to stir fry the noodle a bit.
Okay.
Okay,
Right. Right.
with some aromatics, and then a liquid. Okay,
Okay.
so we're doing some
Oh,
aromatics
and
like ginger and some
okay.
and some
So
pepper, and
so
then
they became soggy.
they became soggy and broke apart.
Oh,
Com-
wow. Okay. So there's this.
they were completely too delicate. They completely just broke apart. Okay, so
Yeah. Yeah.
they really could not cook twice. You know,
I see. I see. Interesting.
Whereas
So
the rice
science
noodles,
experiment.
yeah, the rice noodles, which is just 100% rice. It's not as healthy as the whole wheat soba noodle. We did the first cooking on that, really simple
Yep.
3 4 minute cooking in the water. We held it in cold water, and then we added it to the stir fry. Delicious.
Oh, okay. Okay.
The noodles were long, and they stayed long. They were strong. It looked great. It absorbed
They
the
could tolerate that, the heat.
Yeah,
They could
yeah.
tolerate it. Yeah. Yeah.
That second cooking. They
Right.
absorbed the liquid really nicely, you know.
Okay. Yeah.
So so we learned there,
Actually, that's
both.
a great even though you know the outcome now, maybe you did
Mhm.
before you did that with the class, but that's a great class to continue to do and have the soba go bad again. Let them
Yeah,
see that. You know
yeah,
what I'm
yeah.
saying?
And then to talk about it, say, how come this didn't work? How come it didn't
Yeah.
work? And let's say you wanted to do the soba, how would you change it to make the soba work. Okay.
Right.
Which we did come up with. We said, okay, you can make a nice soba noodle, all right? But you just can't cook it twice. So you have to do you have to do the stir fry separate, even though it's a noodle stir fry. There were other things in the stir fry, again, like ginger and some pepper. And then I think we also put in we stir fried some bok choy with it. So just do a simple stir fry of that. And then you can either toss that with the soba or put it on top of the soba. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Then you'd spend time troubleshooting. Okay, what can we do next time to improve this?
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. I know we're ending. Is there anything else that you wanted to say about food preparation in relation to Ayurveda? We covered energetics. We covered the different methods. We covered, quality of food, leftovers, prana. We also covered just cooking as a sadhana, a daily practice.
Yeah.
Anything else that you think is important for people to know in terms of the actual preparation of food?
Just that is a very important part of it. That you have to kind of respect the process, and that it's good to be in a self-referral state. It's good to be awake and alert and clear and happy as you're preparing food, because that is also the feeling that's going into the food. So every step of the way is a step that you can, give yourself into that food. I'll think about it more and see what else we can bring up. But I think we covered pretty much.
And if people actually
start,
if people actually start making these changes, what can they expect to happen?
Your cooking is going to be better. Your cooking is going to be better. In the end, the flavors in the dish will be better. You will get more out of that. You will create more ojas out of that, and you'll enjoy the whole process more.
Yeah, healthier, happier.
Yeah, healthier, happier. People sometimes, some people think that they need to eat, but they don't even like the process. So it's such an important part of life. Enjoy the process too.
Yeah, and there's definitely an enjoyment factor. There's no doubt. We'll end with this, Rich. Are you cooking anything Ayurvedic today? Or what are you cooking today?
I'm going to my wife is here today. We had a delicious breakfast. Here's an example of a leftover. Okay. But I think it worked really, really well. It was just dinner from last night. We had some leftover salmon that we sauteed. There were some potatoes with it. There were some tomatoes with it. There were a little bit of greens with it. I just cut up the potatoes a little bit. I took the salmon, nice chunk, broke it down into little pieces. I sauteed it in a little bit of ghee. Okay. I added a touch of hing and scrambled some eggs. And we had a kind of a scrambled egg dish with these ingredients in them. Also, a really nice one piece of toasted whole wheat. It's kind of a whole wheat rye mixture, actually, that was made at school. And that was our breakfast. And it was so
beautiful.
Good. It was so good.
Sounds delicious. So good.
And then we're doing Indian for my class. I'm going to class. I'll be going to class soon. And today we do Indian in class. So that should be fun. Yeah.
That will be fun.
I love Indian Day. Yeah.
Get your spices ready and all your dals.
Yep.
All right.
Thanks a lot, Noreen.
To be continued.